Hi guys and welcome to my review of the 2021 Spanish Grand Prix. As everyone predicted, this race was dictated by the run to the first corner, which then also heavily dictated the strategies throughout the course of the race, which led to the result we ultimately got. It was an intriguing race and we were all sat on the edge of our seats for the final 20 or so laps to see what would happen with the lead battle. So going through the teams from slowest to fastest, we will see who did well and who didn't. Haas had just another weekend at the back of the grid. This is where they are at the moment. Mick didn't even manage to outperform Latifi in the race, despite outqualifying him. So it is just another weekend where Haas are just at the back, finishing in 18th and 19th, the last of the classified runners. Next, we had Williams, who finished 14th with George Russell and 16th with Nicholas Latifi. There was a brief period towards the end of the race where it looked like Russell might be able to nick that 10th place and get his first points for Williams, which would have been great. Unfortunately, it didn't come to pass and he seemed to have ruined his tyres a little bit and then he just dropped back through the grid. Overall, just another one of those weekends for Williams. They're just not quick enough to challenge for points and it's going to take something to really put them, such as a wet race like we had at Imola. Next up, we had Alfa Romeo. Now, this is a complete reversal of fortunes from yesterday where Gio was clearly quicker than Kimi. Raikkonen produced an amazing performance to finish up in 12th, whereas Giovinazzi dropped down to 15th place by the end of the race. I expected more from Gio after his qualifying performances, but ultimately he just wasn't quite there, especially compared to his teammate Raikkonen doing a very good job. Next, we have Aston Martin, who ultimately finished in 11th and 13th, exactly where they started. No change at Aston Martin, and Stroll briefly held 10th place before Gasly decided that was all for him. So I was hoping for more from Aston Martin, and I will continue to hope that that car eventually works and that Vettel finds his mojo. Unfortunately, at the moment, it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen soon. Finally, in the midfield runners in the back of the grid, the bottom half, we have AlphaTauri. Gasly getting the point for 10th place was great. They recovered and still did score a point, helped by Alonso's poor tyre strategy. And Yuki Tsunoda had a weekend to forget with his poor performance in qualifying 1 yesterday and an early retirement due to a car failure. Yuki will just want to put this weekend out of his mind, forget about it, and prepare for Monaco in 2 weeks' time. Next, we had Alpine. Alpine, who looked so good on Saturday, it looked like they were comfortably going to be challenging for points, sank like stones. They just didn't seem to have the same tyre management ability. Ocon dropping from his incredible 5th place on the grid to 9th, and Alonso dropping all the way down to 17th by the end of the race due to a poor tyre strategy. That is not indicative of the pace in that Alpine car, but it is a show that they cannot quite manage their tyres over the course of a race distance and probably got this one wrong. They will improve as the season goes on, but Ocon is doing a great job and hopefully this will continue, and Alonso will just continue to get up to speed and will eventually showcase the man that we all know he is. Next, 4th fastest this weekend, weirdly, was McLaren. They just didn't have enough to challenge Ferrari and particularly didn't have enough to challenge Charles Leclerc. The McLaren's coming home in 6th and 8th place, split by Carlos Sainz. It was just one of those weekends where they just had to bring them home and score points, and it will continue to allow them to accrue the points over the course of a season by consistency that gets them to the best of the rest, like it did last season, where they didn't have the ultimate headline results, but they did have a lot of very good consistent results. 3rd fastest this weekend were Ferrari. Ferrari did very well. They were comfortably quickest of the midfield. Leclerc coming home in 4th place, Carlos Sainz in 7th, continuing his run of always scoring at his home race. He'll hopefully eventually get that home race podium, and he will be Spain's new Formula 1 superstar once Fernando Alonso finally properly retires. Now, Red Bull. Red Bull were hamstrung once again, as has happened so many times in the past, by the fact that they only had one driver in the lead fight. Sergio Perez qualifying 8th yesterday and ultimately saying it was because he had a shoulder injury, and today only managing to recover up to 5th place. But him being out of that fight early gave Mercedes a lot more options on strategy because of the gap between the front two and the leaders of the midfield. This left Max in a very difficult position. Max did everything he needed to off of the line. He beat Hamilton into turn 1 and comfortably controlled the race from the front. But from the early radio messages where he was shocked at how much grip Hamilton appeared to have behind him, it was clear that Mercedes had the edge on strategy as well. And ultimately, their strategy did go wrong. Finally, Mercedes, what a strategy to get Lewis Hamilton in this race. When once again they pull it off, they always seem to find something. It's that combination of Lewis and Mercedes that is so difficult to see getting beaten right now. This is Lewis Hamilton's 98th career win. He's the first driver this season to win from pole position, And it's his best start to a season in his career, accruing 94 points across the first 4 races with 3 race wins and a second place. Normally Lewis builds up momentum as the season goes on, but this season he has started out on fine form, and this is slightly more terrifying to behold. You'd be slightly crazy to bet against him continuing this form and wrapping up his 8th World Championship before the season has ended. Now, Bottas. He was good enough all weekend, with the exception of not letting Lewis pass rapidly. That was stupid. He should accept his role as a number 2. He's definitely quick enough to be at that Mercedes team, but he is the number 2 to Lewis Hamilton. He is number 2 to an alien. The man's inhuman in the way how fast he is, and Valtteri just has to accept he's not going to beat him. Not regularly anyway. He's definitely never going to beat into a title, not while Lewis is still in that car. So he should have let him through, because all he did there was risk losing the team points, because Hamilton could challenge for the win, Bottas couldn't. It made more sense to just let his teammate by. Now, speaking of the Mercedes strategy, it looked like Max had the advantage. Max took the lead off of the line and into turn 1 at a track where you need about a 2-second pace delta in your advantage to get past someone. It's that hard to overtake here because of the medium speed corners and the high emphasis on aero. So Hamilton was sat right behind Max Verstappen, and eventually, after an early safety car for Yuki Tsunoda's retirement, Mercedes realised that they were going to have to win this on strategy, and it was Red Bull that blinked first. They brought in Max Verstappen on lap 24, and it was a slow stop, so Mercedes could have knee-jerk reacted and brought in Lewis immediately and hoped they could have jumped him, and that the time loss in the pit stop would have negated the time gained from the fresh tyres on the outlap. But they didn't. They held Lewis out for another 5 laps before bringing him in. With both drivers on the medium tyres, Hamilton caught back up to Verstappen and clearly had more pace than him. And Mercedes knew this, but he didn't have enough pace to pass Verstappen. So Lewis sat behind Max and pushed him and made him push his tyres a little bit too hard. And then Mercedes pulled the pin on lap 42. At the end of lap 42, they bring in Lewis once again, put him on another set of the medium tyres in Hungary 2019 version 2. He comes out behind Valtteri Bottas and 22 seconds behind Max Verstappen with 24 laps to go. On lap 60, he made the move with 6 laps to spare. This is an incredible display of pace from Lewis Hamilton. He had to nail his outlap so that Red Bull couldn't counter the strategy by bringing in Max immediately, and he had to nail all of the laps while not taking too much life out of his tyres. He did fantastically well and then made the overtake on track, which was comparatively easy due to the massive difference in the age of the tyres. Overall, I think Lewis is definitely a deserved winner of Driver of the Day. It looked briefly like Max was going to win it, and I know there's a lot of Max fans out there. Don't just vote for him regardless of what he does. He had a good race today, but Lewis was clearly the standout. That strategy only works with a driver like Lewis Hamilton who has faith in his team. He admitted he wasn't initially that sure, but had faith in his team regardless, and then had faith in his own ability to pull back that gap. It was a brilliant display of the tactical knowledge of Mercedes and the advantage they have from having 2 cars in that front fight, whereas Red Bull only have the 1. Now, we have a 2-week break until the Monaco Grand Prix. Monaco is entirely dictated by what happens on Saturday. If it rains on Sunday, we get a slightly more entertaining race, but if it doesn't, it's very processional. Monaco is the jewel of the crown, but it's not a great watch beyond the spectacle. So I will enjoy the weekend. I'll definitely enjoy Saturday. Qualifying at Monaco is the best qualifying session of the year, hands down. Watching the drivers do what they do around the streets of Monaco is brilliant. But until then, I have been Shane Nye. Thank you for watching.